I take charge of my time pretty well. I've never really been a kind of person where whatever I do controls me. I'm very firm and even I would say even fierce and independent, self-directed in how I manage whatever I do. And if I want to block out time, I just block it out. I just don't schedule anybody there. Or I give my team instructions of, where to put people in my calendar or something to that effect. Or I add a new person to my team to cover things. Or I shift the tasks on my team with who's doing what thing. Because priorities keep changing and you have to keep adapting to those priorities. So I'm not really I am getting busier. So yeah, I have to face that reality, but it's a manageable.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Howard Sambol, who does transformational coaching and helps professionals transition from corporate careers into business they genuinely love. He works with successful employees who've outgrown their roles, conscious entrepreneurs seeking profitability, and creative leaders ready to turn passion into sustainable income. Through his LifeCrafting system, he guides clients to clarify purpose, identify their niche, stabilize cash flow, and build the marketing, sales, and confidence needed for long-term success. His approach is holistic, as a master astrologist and structured, designed to help people align their work with their unique gifts while creating real financial stability. Welcome to the show, Howard.
Thank you so much, Pedro. That was quite an introduction.
Yeah, I'm excited on the day I met you, even before we were recording the podcast. And Howard, the time you've been in the game is long enough for me to ask you, the origin story, which I actually love, going backtrack a little and understanding what made you do what you're doing right now. So before we get into what you do now, right? I'm curious how this all actually started.
Yeah.
So what was going on in your life when this was more than just an idea?
I'll tell the story many times. I'll give you the short version. Okay. Okay. in the interest of time. Okay. So I got my bachelor's and master's degree in mathematics, and I was teaching high school and college for several years, mostly on the East Coast. I grew up in New York City, and I knew that my life was much, much bigger than that. There were just things well beyond that. And while I was pursuing my PhD, also in mathematics, some inner shifts started to really happen. I was going through a lot of inner doubt, questions, turmoil, and it turned out that the committee, the doctoral committee, wasn't happy with my performance on the PhD oral exams. They wanted me to take the exam again, and I said, no, thank you. And it's quite an astounding kind of thing, because no graduate students ever do that kind of thing, right? But I did it, and I was very courageous. And that set me onto a new journey, a new path. And my first stop along the way was astrology from a spiritual perspective, not the popular, silly, predictive, psychic nonsense, but serious astrology, was practiced by high-level professionals. And that opened this whole gigantic doorway into multiple paths of learning and teaching and guiding others. So that's the short version.
Wow. Now that's a shift, right? We're talking about PhD in mathematics to serious astrology. You don't see happen that often, right?
Right. And also entrepreneurship, because, the mathematicians are they're rarely entrepreneurs. They're academics, they live in the academic world.
Wow. That's so interesting. Now, Howard, at what point did it stop feeling like a side thing or a calling right? And start feeling like an actual business you were responsible for?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say that happened on a few points along the way. I hired various mentors who were brilliant. I mean, all through the years, and there are different, types of mentors, and each one gave me a set of gifts, but they also infused me with the ability to see a bigger picture and embrace, the journey of entrepreneurship as the ultimate expression of self, the ultimate, journey of self-discovery, growth, and, the freedom to be able to, you know, create my own reality, my own world, and make the impact that I really want to make.
So some important mentors were
Yeah,
in your
sure.
way.
And I could give you an example of one if you're curious. A man by the name of Michael Gerber he became pretty famous, and he wrote a book called The E-Myth. It's back in the 1980s. And he was one of the leaders in the whole movement of, the people moving towards entrepreneurship. And I had a very close relationship with him. He was giant. And then there were others along the way. And each time it became deeper and the commitment level became stronger. But totally honest, there was never any doubt in my mind that I was ever going to, not continue on this path. Once I'm a Taurus. So once I set my mind on something, I'm going to be relentless.
Yeah, the E-Myth is a classic. I'll tell you that. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, that's a great reference. And imagine having that guy as a mentor. So
Yeah, I did. And we were actually pretty close. We had some really good conversations privately. Yeah.
Okay. And once you were out there helping people, right? Who did you naturally end up attracting? When did you realize, yeah, these are the people I work best with?
Well, yeah, I think it became pretty classic pretty quick. It was basically mid-career professionals. I'd say more commonly women than men, but also both. There were people who had dedicated themselves to a corporate career path, very classic, very traditional, go to school, get your degrees, get a job, et cetera, and then only to find that after a certain number of years, sometimes it was 5 or 8, sometimes 12 or 15, they hit the proverbial brick wall where it was no longer the path for them, but they didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. They were in this very, very difficult and challenging quandary of not knowing what they want to be when they grow up, essentially, or rethinking. And nowadays we use the expression reinventing yourself. It's become a fairly popular term. And so I created this thing called the reinvention toolkit, which is a PDF document that you can download on our site that maps out the entire process of reinventing yourself from soup to nuts. It's quite extraordinary. And it's, a distillation of, many years of guiding people. But so if I nailed it down, midlife, professional, career women, some men who were ready to design the life that they were always meant to have and the career that they were always meant to have. And as it turned out, it wasn't employment. It didn't take the form of employment. It was always entrepreneurship. And after a period of time, I lost so much faith and trust in the world of employment and corporate. I just didn't pursue it anymore. So I haven't been it for a long time.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about mere career professionals, right? I want to understand how do they usually find their way to you in the first place, marketing wise?
Well, that's a great question. And there's multiple answers to it. So in the early days, when we go way back, it was very much people to people contact, networking, connections, referrals, going to events, going here, going there. I would meet people, and the telltale signs would be fairly evident. There were conflicted, confused, unsure, certain, challenged with short-term income, not knowing, again, future direction, or like we said earlier, multiple interests. Which one do I choose? What do I do? And so that was easy. And then in later years, there was other systems in our company that we implemented. For example, one thing we did for a period of time was a signature speaking a signature talk. A signature talk, when we would have a video of that, we would drive traffic to that. Then people would schedule an appointment with me, and that would be, that would generate our flow. Nowadays, we're using a combination of social media with a variety of the methods, and a team and a sales team and people in the Philippines, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an evolving system. It's an evolving, growing system, and it does have multiple pathways to it.
That is so true. It's so much evolving. And we're thinking about, like, just out loud, for example, SEO, right? Google. Now that we have AI doing somewhat of that work, it's like I had like coaches telling me that ChatGPT were like sending them clients, based on a conversation inside ChatGPT. So it's always and constantly evolving. But I want to dive into the mechanics, behind the scenes for a moment. Like, imagine I'm one of those middle career, right? Your ICP, right? Your client profile, and I want to work with you, right? So what does that actually look like from my perspective if I am like an onboarding client, for example?
Yeah, very good. Well, we would meet. There's a very different versions, but I'll give you one more common version. So I would invite you to join our Facebook group as a real support and networking community. So it's a community where you get to meet a lot of people, share resources, talk about what you do well, what you're seeking, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very supportive, interacting community, but it's also oriented towards personal growth. So it's not just external to you. It's what's going on inside you too. But what are your beliefs? What are your limiting patterns? What do you want to shift inside? And today people use the word mindset very frequently, and yet they have no idea what that even means, because there's no such thing as mindset. It's just a word. What really mindset consists of is beliefs, and you need to become skilled to do real serious personal growth. You have to learn about the patterns of beliefs and how they're formed and how to shift them, and be able to be very precise and know the limiting beliefs that are getting in your way. So and then what happens is from the starting point, I'll schedule a Zoom meeting with somebody, and I will help them, of course, get value and benefit from our community and our network. And I'll ask them some questions, and I'll see where they are in regards to their journey. Like, are they, for example, in a job search on LinkedIn, for example, and with the blinders on? So they're in a job search and they can't see one little inch beyond that idea. I got to get a job. That's it. There's very little that I can do with a person like that, because they're locked in with their belief system. On the other hand, if they're willing and able to be a little bit more open-minded and perspective, then there's lots of things I can give them right at the very beginning before they become a client that are huge, like really huge. Like, for example, our core principle is what we call taxi, job, and career. Those are separating the short-term income needs from your long-term dreams, goals, aspirations. And that's the Maslow hierarchy of needs, essentially. But one of our sacred principles is don't mix those two. Don't try to do both at the same time. You'll kill yourself if you do. Mm-hmm. So by separating out the short-term financial needs, we can work with somebody with their skills, their gifts, their experience, and we can apply some very powerful methods and tools to help them resolve those short-term cash flow needs, to giving them that stability and security that they need. And it's like a plateau where they can now say, okay, I'm relaxed. I'm okay. I'm good. I can pay my bills. Now let's look to the future at my playground. What do I want to really do with my life? And then again, there we apply a completely different strategy to resolve the questions in that arena. This is, even though it's common sense, and most people have heard this, it's staggering to when you find out how many professional people have still not understood the importance of this simple separation. And they must do that. Otherwise, they'll self-sabotage.
Interesting. It's almost like if they're too deep, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're too deep into that scarcity mindset. I don't want to use mindset because it's belief, right? If they're too deep in that scarcity belief, they're going to have a hard time bringing in something good, right? It's like, it's almost a shift you need to make, but it's hard to make a shift in that belief, right?
Well, if you're told all your life that a job is the only way you'll ever quote unquote earn a living, and you have accepted that belief, 1,000%, and you're terrified of stepping out of that little container for, or bubble for a time, that's going to be difficult. But if you're somebody who has even just a little bit of open-mindedness, and you realize that people do, even if you have the thought, well, people find jobs in many different ways other than just submitting their resume and getting an interview. Okay, so people do find opportunities in life in a variety of ways. That's it. Then you have a beginning point. You have a starting point where we can start really looking at all the different things. And you can start becoming aware of what's generally called the pre-agent economy. You may have heard that expression somewhere. Well, it's vast. It's literally vast. And there's literally hundreds of millions, billions of dollars earned globally around the world without people ever submitting a resume, without ever going to a job interview. It's just people connecting with people, and they're cutting deals and making arrangements and projects and contracts and everything you can think of, and earning way more money than they ever work in a corporate environment where they're trying to control every penny, and where they typically will kick you to the curb and hire a kid out of college just to save a few bucks, right?
Mhm.
I mean, or the horror story. I don't have to tell you the horror stories of corporate practices. I mean, I'm sure you could fill in blank on a few of those yourself, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. Now, Howard, your work seems pretty involved, right? We're talking about the Zoom calls. We're talking about managing a team. You mentioned Philippines, but of course you have some support around you. So my question is, how do you think about managing your time and energy so the business doesn't start owning you, for example?
Well, that's a good question. I take charge of my time pretty well. I've never really been a kind of person where my whatever I do controls me. I'm very firm, and even I would say even fierce and independent, self-directed in how I manage whatever I do. And if I want to block out time, I just block it out. I just don't schedule anybody there, or I give my team instructions of, where to put people in my calendar or something to that effect, or I add a new person to my team to cover things, or I shift the tasks on my team with who's doing what thing, because priorities keep changing and you have to keep adapting to those priorities. So I'm not really, I am getting busier. So yeah, I have to face that reality, but just say it's a manageable. It's
Right. Now you're getting busy, right? So let's take a look forward a bit and understand what's the direction you're aiming this business. Okay. Are you thinking more about growth, leverage, building a team, or refining what already works? What feels most exciting right now, Howard?
Yeah, let me tell you about that. I have given some thought to that. Our signature program in LifeCrafting is a very, very unique mastermind course. And we have a 6-month agreement that some clients will do, and then we have a 1-year agreement. And they're continuous, which means a person can renew. They can do 6 months and then renew for another 6 months. So what happens in that mastermind program is absolutely profound. It's off the charts, okay? Because we use all the advantages of what a mastermind is in a classic sense. And then we add this curriculum that has evolved in LifeCrafting over decades that literally takes a person from wherever they're starting to this ultimate place I mentioned earlier, being in your playground, making money, doing what you love, and having the kind of impact in the world that you really want to have as far as quality of life goes. Where I think the cutting edge for me personally is now is realizing that the format of the classic mastermind, where you have to stop at 6 or 8 people, is no longer realistic because you can't scale. So the concern I've had, as many people have, is how do you maintain quality? How do you scale and get bigger and maintain the quality because it's so sacred to me to treat each individual and give each individual exactly what they need and what I want to give them. It's a gift and it's from my soul, from my heart, right? But now using a variety of resources, including AI, of course, in order to reinvent the structure or the form of how our mastermind will work in the future so it can scale. It can scale more easily. And that's, I would say, a work in progress right now.
Interesting. And since you mentioned work in progress, you would say that's the main thing you're actively working on or trying to improve in the business right now, or is there any?
There is another thing I'm working on, which I can share. If you're curious about the edge, like where my cutting edge is, if that's what you're asking about.
Well, this is Career Coaching Secrets podcast after all, and we like to talk with people that are under friction, right? Because out of the comfort zone and trying to improve and impact more people and serve others. And when you're trying to do that, it creates obviously friction. So I want to understand where the friction is so it can potentially help others.
It's only friction if you overstep your own boundaries. Or if you don't know your own boundaries, you don't know what your values, what your principles are, what your commitments are to yourself, or if you don't care, if you don't do the proper self-care, and care, and loving yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody and no one can love you. Okay. So taking care of your own needs at all levels of your being is a foundational principle in any area of life. Okay. But how you structure it, that's of course a real question. And that brings me to another one of our LifeCrafting programs, which is probably the most innovative thing that I've ever done in my life, which is a game. And I won't say a lot about it here because the time is limited, but it's a game that's based around making promises to yourself. And you make a series of promises to yourself. What happens? You build self-trust. And when you build self-trust, we can do anything, right? So it's a cascading series of events from keeping promises, sometimes renegotiating them, but keeping them, maintaining your integrity, building self-trust, confidence, momentum, productivity, and then you soar. Then you just soar and soar and soar. And you build what we call a confidence success spiral. From there, you go out of your comfort zone in small little baby increments, which of course keeps you moving forward. And this, of course, assumes that you're on a trajectory, you're on a path that's aligned with your soul. How do you get on a path that's truly, truly, truly aligned with your soul? That brings you back to astrology again, because you need to really know yourself, to know the core of your being and feel into, not just in your head, but really feel into your life purpose and discover your life purpose in an experiential kind of way so that what you're living is in alignment. So the game, and people watching this, they can play the game for free because we're in beta test mode. They can play the game for free. Okay. They will be truly amazed. Of course, it involves some AI, but it's not free of human connection. And I'd love people to join, get in touch with me, ask me about the game. I'll give you how to join, how to play. And on my YouTube channel, we have videos on the game, so you can watch them and learn about it if you like.
Okay? Interesting. Okay. Now, advice time. Okay. Because you've been around long enough to see, trends come and go. People give business advice nonstop, especially online, right? You're scrolling on social media, so it's like AI is dead, and the next post is AI is going to take over, right? So what's something you hear repeated a lot, Howard, that you think people misunderstand or overvalue?
Well, I think what you hear a lot is that, like you were just saying a minute ago, this is dead, this is good, this is no good, you get all these opinions. Everybody's got an opinion about everything, right? Okay.
Right.
So you want to be very cautious on what you buy into, because the truth is everything is a belief and you can choose what you believe. But a lot of time we get indoctrinated, or humans get indoctrinated into a certain belief system without even knowing that that's happening. So you want to be very discerning about what you accept to be true or what you believe. When you work with a mentor, a person with a lot of experience who's been through, decades in this field and work, you will get certain core principles and ideals that are time tested, that are proven and time tested. And you will learn how to make decisions on your own about what really is a fit for you. That's not a one size fits all thing. And you'll be able to test your hypothesis, right? You put everything to the test, because in business and in marketing, there's nothing that's absolute and you have to test it. But can be able to test it within a support environment, within a support community, where you get the kind of feedback you need in order to make those critical adjustments along the way. And from that process, you're going to settle in on those tools, strategies, methods, concepts that are the right for you, and be able to run with them and create stability with that.
Okay. And on the flip side,
Yeah.
what's something boring or not as hyped that you wish more people actually paid attention to?
Well, okay. I wouldn't say it's boring, but I will say that there are things that I've learned a very, very, very long time ago. To be honest, before there was very much technology on the planet. And those methods have been sort of a sustaining toolkit or methodology, or, you know what I mean, that I've relied on. And it's shocking to me and somewhat sad that what's happened over the many, many decades is that the technology has obscured those core principles, and people have lost, or maybe they never even learned those core principles. And they rely on technology, but they miss the boat because they're not doing the fundamental things. And so, and one example of what I'm talking about is networking. Now, networking is a word that's, people say it 100 times a day, but do they really know what it is? Do they really have an outcome in mind? Do they know how they're going to do it and how they're going to get that outcome? Do they measure their own effectiveness, success? Do they have methodology, a strategy, a plan? Are they able and willing to be expressive of their truth and actually live in the moment, in the now moment where everything's happening? You know what I mean? Or are they often some cloud, whatever, some recipe that doesn't apply because they're scripting. They're trying to script their life in some pattern. You know what I mean? So there's 100 different factors here, but I was very fortunate that I had some very early mentors that taught me what I sometimes call the magic of networking that is shockingly still not understood. It's still not understood. And I think part of the reasons it's not understood is because in our world, there's so much alienation that people have lost sight of the importance of a simple friendship, a simple alliance where people really, really do help each other, and they really are at each other's camp, and they'll help you make the contacts that you need to make, branch off in the directions where you need to go. So I build that core understanding and principles and techniques into our environments and into our programs. Along with it. But let me add one small thing there. Anytime a person says that something is boring, that's a symptom of a deeper problem. Okay. It's a symptom of a deeper problem, whether they recognize the deeper problem or not. Okay. What is the ultimate antithesis of boredom? Or let me say it differently. Is boredom something that happens to you, or does it happen from you, in you, or is it some function of your environment? If you think it's your environment because your friends and colleagues are not entertaining you enough, that's of course absurd, right? So what I've described boredom to be a state in which you are not non-creative because you're not engaging your own innate creative abilities. You can't be bored if you're creative. You just can't be. It's impossible.
So boredom, would you say, is like PhD in mathematics?
Or no, boredom is a disconnect. No, boredom is a disconnect with.
Yes, but to your point, I mean the origin story, right? Did you felt bored when you were doing math?
No, I never felt bored with mathematics, and I never lost one iota of love and deep, profound respect for mathematics. Because I decided to pursue another path as my major life path, I never regretted my work in mathematics even for a single moment, nor did I ever lose the reverence the reverence that I have for it.
I love that.
Literally sacred to me.
I love that because you're not looking like let's pretend here, okay? Let's say I'm getting divorced and I get a new wife. You're not looking back at math or the divorce with resentment. It's just like you're chasing a new opportunity that sparked your interest, something like that. Like, hey, it's not that I hate math or think it's boring. It's just like I would like to go to a different path.
Yeah, because life has its chapters and you complete a chapter and then you go to something new because you're evolving as a being. That's the reason why my clients will typically be in a corporate job for a number of years and then, hit that proverbial brick wall where they know they need to reinvent themselves and they're not sure how, because who they were when they started that job and all through those years, they were a certain person. And then they grew and evolved and changed. Their values changed, their interests changed, their priorities changed, right? And when you come back to astrology again, we can see all of this in somebody's birth chart. We can see the process unfolding that this is going to be a time to rethink, to reevaluate, to reinvent, because that's the spiritual process, is that you're evolving into the better, fuller expression of who you really are. So that's something to be celebrated. Change is something to be celebrated as an opportunity and a something fantastic. Just like you transition from anything. But
I love how you reframe that. I really like that.
Yeah. And everything you did for a purpose and a reason when you did it. When you did it. But the love of that part of you that wants you to discover a deeper truth, that part of you that wants you to get that core sense of identity and living your life in alignment with that is the greatest gift God could ever give you. And they have heard stories about people who go through MDEs and they come out the other end with a different value system or a different ideology or plan. And sometimes I say you don't have to die in order to do that. You can just do LifeCrafting.
Okay.
Because in LifeCrafting, you're going to get to that same place inside your divine center, your creative essence and your center, where you know the truth. You feel the truth. You don't have to die to get to that truth.
Howard, before we close this, if someone resonated with what you shared and wants to follow your work, where should they go?
Okay. Well, okay. So I'm assuming, of course, we can put a few links in.
Absolutely. We'll be part of it.
So I'll give you all those links and people can click on them. But you can always email me, howard@lifecraftingprogram.com. So they can always do that. You can always go to Facebook and look up my name, Howard Sambol, and friend me or just send me a note on Messenger and start a conversation with me there. That's always possible. Those are two really good options. And of course, on LinkedIn, similar, you can find me on LinkedIn. But those are three really good ones. And the other things that I'll mention here is when you see, the program notes with the links, you'll be able to find our YouTube channel and you'll be able to find our reinvention toolkit, which is really a fantastic thing. And our game, I might can even say the name of it here because people then want to try to, whatever. It's better if they connect and we share the game. Okay. Now, one thing I want to urge your audience, I know that your audience has career coaches, okay? And please don't be too horrified by what I said about jobs and employment, because if you're still really settled in and helping people get jobs and helping people revise their resume for the 50th time, and that feels right to you, keep doing that, keep doing that. It's just, you want to be really caring. If people are submitting, application for jobs and waiting for 9 months to hear that to learn that their resume wasn't even read because it was, who knows? It was on a big pile like that. Nobody got a chance to read it. And they already figured out who they were going to hire before they even advertised the position, right? So these are the horror stories, we hear about. Just keep an open mind. And if you connect with us, we're going to help you build your, career coaching practice. If that's your path to be a career coach, That's fine. Avoid labels. Avoid labeling yourself. Another piece of advice. Do you say I'm a coach or a toaster oven? Do not be a toaster oven. Okay. Do not be a commodity. Okay. Share your uniqueness, share your specialness, what is your brilliance and your genius. And no matter what anybody has ever told you, you are a genius. Albert Einstein, there's a famous quote from Albert Einstein about that. Okay. And get in touch with us because we can help you, you can be an affiliate with us and we can partner. So there's all kinds of cool things there.
Okay. There were a few things from this chat that really stood out to me, this conversation. I would say the shift from PhD mathematics to
Right.
serious astrology, that's a very interesting shift. And you gave me a quick origin background story. I can bet we could spend hours on that solely, right? And I really love the way you framed it, looking at math without resentment. It's more like I just chose a different path that fulfills me, so I would commend you on that. Also, understanding the changes in the marketing space, how you've been in the game long enough and how up to date you are still, Howard, when back in the day was like, to an extent, it still is, right? It's about connecting, networking, whatever you want to call it, but it's about having that conversation first. It's not about selling. It's not about being transactional. It's just like, hey, let's talk. Let's see if this makes sense. If it doesn't, it's all good, but I'm here to serve, first of all, here to serve. I think people forget about what sales really means, which is serving. So if I cannot help you, I'll point into the direction that may be helping you in the future or right now. I would also highlight, the mindset and belief differentiation you made.
Right.
I think that's very interesting because mindset is so much broader and so much less specific. When we're talking about belief, we get into the strategic, right? It's like, what exactly are you believing or something that is detrimental to you or your future?
People also think that you can change your mindset, which they call just by telling yourself to think differently, which is nothing more than a pep talk. I mean, think about like years ago when sales teams, they'd bring in a motivational speaker or something just to rile people up so they'd get increase their sales. It's like essentially a pep talk. Okay. You don't change your beliefs with a pep talk. And you don't change them with affirmations, just pounding in your brain with a new thought. You have to recognize the mechanics of how beliefs are formed and how openly they can be changed. But you can learn that. You can learn that methodology with us.
I love that. I really appreciated taking the time and being open with this, Howard. It was great having you on.
It was a pleasure. It was super fun.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.